based out of the West office. And I'm very glad to be your MC for today and also tomorrow. We have two sessions happening here today. So make sure you be seated till we have the second session as well. All right, welcome to Sheesh Mahal. And our first session is going to be very interesting. I'm sure it's going to be very engaging, and there's a lot of insights that we're going to take back from us. So, in today's evolving work environment, it's no longer about getting the job done. It's also about designing spaces where your employees can excel at work and also be happy and confident of supporting their own families, right? From flexible hours to childcare, we'll today in our discussion explore how family friendly work spaces are not just perks but are essential for thriving and happier employees. Let's dive into innovative approaches that allow parents to work smarter, live happier, and ensure their families are cared for, right? And to take this discussion forward, please welcome our moderator, Shruti Madhavan, Head of Revenue, Clay. Please give it up for her.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm hoping to keep this a fun discussion as well. Let me introduce our esteemed panel today. I'm going to start with the gentleman first because he's one amongst the five of us today. So I welcome Anil. Anil Pulapaka, he's the executive director at JP Morgan. He has 23 years of experience across HR functions in financial services, banking, IT, and he's previously been with RBS, HSBC, IBM, and he focused on total rewards, HR integrations, and strategic HR transformations. Welcome, Anil. Please sit here. Pooja Bhagat, she's the Vice President Total Rewards at United Health Group. Pooja has also been working in the HR fraternity for over 23 years, and she's led organizational transformations, including mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, and Pooja has dedicated herself to sort of building, engaging, and mission-aligned work environment for diverse teams. Welcome, Pooja. Shweta Mohanty, she heads human resources for SAP India. She's the VP and head of HR at SAP India, leads people function across R&D, sales and services. With 22 years of HR experience, she has introduced initiatives like Project Yellow Circle for mental wellness and upskilling programs. Shweta is an advocate for technology-driven HR practices and D&I, making SAP such a dynamic and inclusive workspace. Welcome, Shweta. We have Prachi Rastogi. She is the Diversity and Inclusion Leader APAC at IBM. Prachi has driven gender balance, LGBTQ inclusion and accessibility workspaces within IBM. She fosters a culture of respect and innovation, facilitating mindfulness sessions and promotes collaboration. Prachi is extremely passionate about awareness and inclusion and to enable a diverse, productive workforce. Welcome, Prachi. Okay, I think the context about future-friendly or future-ready workspaces really encompasses a lot of things. So what we intend doing while Clay is a leading preschool and daycare chain, we want to go beyond that and figure out from all these HR leaders as to what is future looking like and how do you build organizations that are really future ready. Yeah, so can I ask you all to sort of maybe pick up my mic? You might want to share it as well. Yeah, as one of the first sort of questions that come up is when you're trying to make family-friendly workplaces bigger, better, what are all the new things that are really coming up? So maybe I'll start with one of the questions that a lot of us often ask. Should companies roll out family-friendly benefits or implement them gradually or upfront? And whoever wants to go, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there is no question. Because, one has to realize that when we are looking at a modern family, no longer it is just about, the, the parents and the kids. The definition of immediate families is also expanding slowly. And a lot of the workforce is actually looking at not only in terms of kind of building careers, but also joining organizations who have a sense of including this expanded definition of family. And hence it is, it's very, very important, and it's actually an imperative for organizations to prioritize on this. um, and the journey towards this is something that I'd like to believe can be a gradual one. I think one really needs to determine on what is the needs of the workforce. And if I have to really talk about SAP in that regard, our journey of having family friendly benefits, started several years back when, we partnered with, Clay to start our, on site daycare center. But it has since then expanded to so many other aspects as well. Today, we actually have a family care leave, which is very specifically talking about, needs of the family. And earlier, people used to take sick leave when their family members used to fall sick. No longer are the days. Today, even if your pet is sick and you go to visit a vet, you can actually look at that. So, yes, you can start at some point in time and determine what are the needs of the organization as a starter, and then slowly you will realize there's a lot of feedback that comes from the workforce and keep on expanding that. So we are very well on that path.
Thanks, Shweta, for sharing that.
Yeah, maybe I can build on that. So, you know, it's very easy to say that this company is doing this. Let's copy, right? It's very easy. But when it comes to your policies, your programs, a lot of it is driven through culture. It's driven through the readiness of your organization, your leaders, your people managers, and that is different for every organization, right? So it's always good to start with the basics, and the basics are, of course, what's legally required and what you see prevalent everywhere in the market, right? But after that, like Shweta said, understand what your organization wants, what your people want. And it's very, very important to do that because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to use these programs. So they have to be relevant. That relevance is super, super critical today, right? Secondly, one has to constantly be monitoring the relevance, because there are a lot of changes happening in the modern family setup, and some of these changes are happening fast. So every couple of years, it's important to do that quick sense check to say, is this relevant? Do I need to continue? It's not only saying, can I introduce something new? It's also about looking and saying, can I stop? If there is something that I am paying some money for, but honestly it's not being used, can I stop that, right? But like I said earlier, I think where your organization sits and its readiness for some of these programs, that becomes super critical to see whether these programs are then successfully implemented.
Anil?
Turn this on. All right. So I think we, if you just take a step back, most progressive organizations have been or have built or invested in building family friendly and a diverse and an inclusive friendly workplace. Okay. And that's like critical. It's if you don't have it, the business is not going to thrive, employees are going to leave, you're going to have high attrition. So it really therefore is something which a good progressive organization will have to invest. Now I'll kind of say that why do you need it? I'll kind of break it down into pre-COVID, post-COVID. I think there have been tremendous change that's happened post-COVID. And if you really dig it down deep into the data, you look at a mix of an employee mix, and I'll tell you why. I'll connect the dots. You have about 12%, 13%, 30%, so on and so forth, Gen X, Gen Y, millennial, and so on. Each one of them have very, very different set of needs. So when you really look at the employee segment, really break it down, and then look at what is the kind of experience that you want to create for each of these segments. One of them is a family friendly workplace. And if you're serious about a couple of things, increasing diversity, which basically means you want to have more gender diverse workforce, you will need to have a family friendly policy, or a I'll say a woman friendly policies in place to start with. And there are multiple success factors of being able to measure that. Number of returning mothers, how long are they staying, how many people are actually getting flex, do you have a good childcare center, is there a good on-site setup for taking medical care, what about during pregnancy, post pregnancy, all of the mental wellness support, everything then just follows in very naturally. But it's the need with employee at the center in each of these segments. That's where I would say how the design depends.
No, so adding to that, Prachi, and I have a question for you. What do you feel is the increasing demand in flexibility as far as childcare support, which is sort of a follow through on what we just asked?
Asking a company which started diversity 100 years ago, and flexibility has really been our main things for employees. Flexibility is important, and not only for people at a certain age or a certain phase in life. You could be at anyone. You could be a single parent, a single woman, a parent of a small child, or an older child. You could be anywhere, and you would want flexibility. You could just need flexibility for your own self. I mean, you want to go swim at a certain hour or do yoga at a certain hour, and you want to take care of the work accordingly. And companies today, as Anil correctly mentioned, post COVID, people are not just working 9-10 hours for money. Money is means to an end for many people today. It's not the end anymore, and it's high time that companies realize this. Flexibility is really core to it. I mean, employees should be welcome to get their whole selves to work and to make a positive impact on the society. That will happen if they are happy.
You were telling me when we were talking over coffee that you have a policy that even allows you to fly your child and a nanny together if women have to fly for work.
Yeah, it started for women. So a lot of women were saying no to client facing travel, and they said that we say no because, especially during lactation, how do you leave your child for 2 days, 3 days, for whatever the travel is. So we said, okay, so you travel, and you travel with your child and with a caretaker of your choice, and it could be your spouse as well. It could be your partner, spouse, and you travel, and IBM pays for the child and the caretaker stay and ticket. It really was received so well. It was so well received that some 27 women traveled in the very first 3 months, and that was unheard of women taking on client facing role. And then we realized this is actually a non-inclusive policy, because it doesn't include men, it doesn't include fathers. So we included fathers as well. So now all employees, all gender parents actually can travel with their children, especially when they are a certain age, and IBM pays for the child and the caretaker.
2-3 takeaways from me from all the answers that I received. One, listen to your employees. And to my question of whether this should be gradual or whether you should just jump right in and give the whole gamut of stuff, what I hear all of you say is start with the basics, listen to your employees, listen to what works for you, what works for your industry and your organization, and sort of build your policy, even if it may take a few years, and needs are diverse. So keep that in mind while you're building your policy as well. Which sort of brings me to other questions, slightly tricky. Childcare benefits, would you treat them as hygiene? Would you treat them as a priority and not necessarily a perquisite? Right? And I think a lot of organizations today look at it as a perquisite and not necessarily a hygiene. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna take this. This one I hold close to my heart, to be honest. I think if you really look at it, when the entire act happened, right? about, I mean, there are a couple of landmark acts that have happened. One is the child care, which is the creche itself, and then the maternity
Amendment.
the amendment. I think these are two landmark changes that have happened. And if you really go and look at it, while whatever they have said within 1 kilometer radius and so on, and it has multiple things, and a lot of companies have stuck to, if you're talking hygiene, they're stuck with, okay, this is what's required, this is what is like a tick in a box. I think the real spirit of the act was to create infrastructure which was missing, right? And the infrastructure, quality infrastructure, brought in quality service providers. Clay is a good example. And we've partnered with you for 10 years. And also I like to say just this. It's not about a hygiene factor. It is a core value proposition, right? And you feel with a sense of pride that you are offering best in class childcare to your employees, both men and women. 40% men are actually utilizing childcare centers today, 60% women, and within the age group of 0 to 6. And when you actually get into it, the details, the design, the way you make it, including the spaces you create for them, everything is done so thoughtfully. You create an employee experience in a sense of belonging, which you cannot create, not possible. So the kind of quality of investments and the thinking and what kind of experience you want employees to have when they come to workplace as a working parents, childcare, I will rate it as number one. For returning moms, for increasing diversity, and to be able to take care of a large part of requirement of today's nuclear family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Pooja, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think, as Anil said, when the way I look at it, childcare is just the tip of the iceberg. We're actually moving from childcare to parenting support. And I think that's becoming increasingly important. And, we were discussing as a group just before this. One way to look at it is, what is the impact if you don't offer this? Right? And that's huge. Everyone's asking on ROI, right? Leaders are asking for ROI. What's the ROI? Does it affect retention? And it's too soon to say that, because attrition is impacted by many other things and not just the benefits and policies that you provide. But I think the way to look at it is also, what happens if you don't provide this, right? And like I said, it's a journey. It's evolving from childcare to parenting. I think increasingly employees, there's a lot of information they're reading and they don't know what to believe, what not to believe in. So they want a trusted source, or a series of trusted sources which will help them through the parenting journey. And parenting is not easy. I mean, many of us understand that today, right? Parenting is really not easy in today's day and age. So it's really about providing, from childcare to more end-to-end parenting support. And we've, as an organization, we've seen that in Optum. So we also started with the basics. We started with our daycare benefit with Clay many years ago. But when we heard our employees, they were looking for support beyond that. So we launched a program called Care 9 that helps employees through the pregnancy journey. Once we finished, employees who had completed and participated in that program, they said, well, what about now that we have the baby, what do we do now, right? So we launched Care 9 and Beyond. And all of these are widely used, widely accepted programs, very well received. What it has helped do is it's created that sense of care in the employee, that my organization cares for me. Not only do they care for me, they care for my family too, because it's offered to employees. So it's not necessary that it's just the employee that's using it. It could be the family as well that's using it. So it's created that sense of, that the organization, we care for our employees and their families. Yes. And that, of course, helps the entire employee experience and other things.
Shweta, you want to add?
Yeah, we are talking about the ROI, and I think that is something which we need to dig a little deeper as well, right? Um, and many organizations still look at ROI in terms of, retention. And for sure, that business case is a proven business case. At least when I look at my organization, we clearly see that actually men more than the women, our retention rates are much higher when those family care and daycare facilities are being utilized. And who knew about it, right, a few years back? But there are so many intangibles that we miss out when we are talking about the ROI. And I'll talk about an example. When you talk about parenting, Pooja, that you were talking about, it's just no longer about the father and the mother, right? For the longest period of time, we talked about all benefits around mothers. Today it is as much as an equal parenting, with fathers playing many much more evolved role. But we have a few situations in our office where we have an employee, due to some unforeseen circumstances, ended up becoming a foster parent for his nephew. Right now, who draws this definition of family? And he's a single, he's a bachelor and still with parenting responsibilities. And for the first time, we actually looked into our policies and said we will not write words like father and mother, right? Because biological things do not only define how family care has to be defined. And the ROIs, for the more progressive we are and more expanded definition that we have, the more the world, the prospective candidates, your own employee, talking about what Anil was saying about the sense of belonging. Then how does a sense of belonging come in? Sense of belonging come in when you are able to look into a need and have a solution for that even before the person has been able to articulate that. So I think those are some of the intangibles that we sometimes forget when we are talking about ROIs, and are very, very crucial in today's day and world.
So what I hear all of you say is really saying, don't look at just one aspect of it while it's just the tip of iceberg, like you rightly said, Pooja. I think it has evolved from being just optional to saying it's a must have, and it's the number one thing to sort of do, and try and make it as gender neutral as you can, and have that as a benefit, not so much as a perk. Do I hear you say that? Core value proposition. I love that. Yeah. So, I mean, do you also feel, and Shweta, I'm going to come back to you, because you also talked about attracting people, saying that we have all these policies, and I know we spoke about how SAP uses this as a really good point to attract. Can I say even millennials and
Absolutely.
yeah?
Absolutely. So we have, we put it out, as Anil was saying, as a core value proposition, as an employee value proposition, because we have inquiries coming from candidates who don't really have like a kid or not even married, right? But that's where the whole workforce philosophies are changing. More and more prospective candidates are looking at what does really this organization hold close to their values, right? And that is something which is a great attraction factor for us. We have last year we launched this employee resource group called Nurture Network, which is actually a employee resource group for new parents. And when we started it, our intent was to really have support provided to new parents, because the journey to to maternity and paternity is really a tough one. So we wanted to make sure that there is support. Lo and behold, we have some of our millennials wanting to be a part of it. They are not even married, they don't have children.
Nice.
Right? But they want to be a part of this journey to help and support, and they are the ones who are coming and saying, okay, you need on one particular afternoon somebody to take care of your child while you are making a presentation to a customer. I'm there. right? And I can just imagine how wonderful parents they would be, right? And in time to come, whenever their time comes, or whoever they decide, at the decisions that they make. But that's where we really need to look at, and that has become a very, very strong, force of attraction for us, and we have been very openly talking about it. So
And I
that's
would imagine these employees are going to be such assets with you
yes,
going forward, because they're now thinking about their own future,
yeah,
growing with SAP and growing in their personal journeys as well, thinking about all these benefits.
yeah.
I think it's a
They also
big
help you
one.
innovate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And this resource groups is a great example of that. Prachi, you also talked about Care9 as a program and how it sort of evolves. Do you see this as a tool, having these benefits as a tool for attraction as well as retention and growing?
Shweta talked about how it attracts people to SAP. I would also add to it that how it retains people at IBM. A lot of people said that some of the policies that you have for parenting and childcare, even if I'm not a parent, and somebody actually wrote to me, I'm not a parent, and somebody said that my kids are really grown up, so I'll never be able to use these policy, but it doesn't matter because I'm just happy that I work for a company which has policies like that. I'm so proud to be working for a company which has all of these childcare centers, tie-ups, and all of these policies which make it a family-friendly workplace. So it attracts people, it retains people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just add
Yes,
one,
please.
one small bit? I think it's not just about family friendly, or that's just one segment. I think what she said actually segues into a very large set of diverse workforce. Now you're having people who are LGBTQ, and you have to make sure you've got benefits that work for them. They may adopt a child,
Yes.
right? You will have people, a segment which is what we call as pride, which is essentially this. We have 4,000 odd people participate. We have women on the move. That's almost 14,000 women and men, right? We have working parents group, which is a business resource group, is what we call them, and so on and so forth. 7 of them. What it really does is get like-minded colleagues, and they actually share not just what the organization does, okay, what else is available, for them. And if you really spend time with them and talk to them and segment it down, you will understand the kind of benefits or the products for consumption for these segments.
Listen to them
You
is
have to
what
listen
you're
to
saying.
them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that sort of beautifully segues into what I wanted to ask you next, and which is a question I want all 4 of you to talk about, because I'm sure you have different perspectives. Childcare is one part, like we said, but what else are you looking at? What is future ready? And some of it we talked about, right? Elder care we talked about pet care, we talked about mental wellness and all of it. So where do you see the next sort of 3 to 5 years, perhaps if not more, this whole segment sort of evolving into, and what might you, or what are you already looking at doing? He's being the gentleman on this panel. Yes.
The couple of these are things which I take very seriously. So mental wellness, in my view, is going to be one of the most important thing. Okay, and it is unfortunately, it's a stigma in our country. If you look at some of the reports which NIMHANS did back in, I think, 2015, 2016, which they're refreshing now. So there'll be a report out in 2024. There is a Deloitte report. 40% of workforce is having some form of mental issue, including depression. The white collar workforce.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to grow. And if you do not have a workplace which talks openly about this, and people keep it to themselves, because one of the very important things in this study, you will also notice that it's the colleagues that they talk to first, right? And what do colleagues do, right? How can we get these colleagues to help them send them to an on-site psychologist? Yeah. How do the leaders who want to, perhaps we all think they are invincible, nothing happens to them, they go through a lot of mental wellness issues. Okay, I know of senior leaders who've gone through depression during COVID, post-COVID, COVID part, and I'll tell you this: pre-COVID, post-COVID, it's a very important phenomenon that's happened on mental wellness. So the entire process of having to make it easier for employees to take help, I'm not talking EAP, I'm really talking our psychologists making the effort to do the floor walks, talk to employees, really help them, creating this peer-to-peer group where really talking about things like depression, anxiety is a big thing.
Yes.
Right? Mom can have an anxiety leaving a child. Dad can have anxiety about something else, anxiety about the job, right? The biggest set of things that are going through top three: number one, relationship issues, right? Number two is anxiety. Number three is mood changes, swings, depression. Top three, you take any study, these are the three things that are going to come out. So we've got to do something about it actively with employees, with the leaders, and create that culture of openness to talk about mental wellness. And I think that's so core to some of the things which will evolve tremendously over the next 5 years.
Sure. Yeah. What else? I mean, what else is evolving? I know mental
I think
wellness.
so. Mental wellness, of course, super critical. This whole theme of caregiving is becoming so important, and starting with self-care, of course. But at some point in our lives, we are all, we land up being caregivers. Our employees land up being caregivers. It could be to a child, it could be to an elderly, it could be to pets. I mean, out of 5 of us here, 3 of us have pets also. That's a very I'd say untargeted segment right now. I have 2 who are absolutely crazy, so fully get that. Yeah. Right. So I mean, it's so pet care, elderly care is really big, right? Especially as we have more nuclear families, in urban areas with sometimes parents not being in the same city, elderly parents. How do you manage and balance both? There is a responsibility that you have towards your job, but there's also a responsibility towards parents, right? So this is another area that is really, really coming up in focus. And of course, childcare, like we said, is big. We've sort of spoken enough about it, right?
No, I think very well covered. I just want to talk very much about what Anil said around mental wellness and just reiterate, because Shruti, you spoke about this project Yellow Circle that we started. This was actually a reaction to what we were seeing happening in the workforce post-COVID, for sure. And today we actually have mental health ambassadors who are our own employees, who are the first line of defense. Sometimes when you are just not feeling okay, you want somebody to talk to, right? And they are the first line of defense. And we are normalizing conversations, destigmatizing mental wellness. So much so that earlier you can just pick up your phone and say, I'm sick and I won't be able to be very productive at office today. You can today call up and say, I'm sad and I won't be able to come to office today. So that's something which has totally been normalized in SAP. But there is one another thing that I want to talk about, because you said, where are we? Which is the direction we are getting? I think one absolutely untapped area is neurodiverse. And I think that is a huge area, because nobody has been able to figure out, when a child is born, why does it actually fall into a neurodiverse spectrum? It could happen to anyone. And it is very, very important for us to build practices and benefits which really have an empathetic gaze towards neurodiversity. Of course, autism is only one segment to it. You're talking about dyslexia, you're talking about learning disabilities. There is so much so that, we don't actually have any offering which really covers all of this, except some therapies which most of the insurances with a lot of push has been able to now cover it. But that's again one of the areas, because the spectrum on neurodiversity is so broad. We sometimes do not have a ready-made solution, to provide to that, and hence that's again a journey that we have to start when tweaking it, understanding, what we are doing in that space, because many of them are very sharp, especially when you're looking into the whole neurodiversity. So how are you, not only the support you're giving to parents whose kids are in the neurodiverse spectrum, but how are you making them more productive? What kind of roles you can provide to them? So we are really now toying an idea of an internship for neurodiverse children.
Wow.
And that's again one of the area, and we would start probably from our own employees, but that's again one of the areas which we really need to think out, because that's completely untapped, and not because you're doing a favor, because there is actually an ROI for the organization there as well.
Thanks, Prati.
Adding to that would be parents of, rainbow parents, parents of LGBTQ plus children. Now that we are so open about sexual orientation and sexual identity, it's really important that we do something about LGBTQ plus children as well. And we've already
And their parents, I'm guessing, as well. How do you deal with it? How do
Absolutely.
you
There's so
manage
much
it?
stigma, so much stigma. There's so much denial amongst parents that it is really important that we engage with parents and we take care of the children as well. There's one more thing that I want to add is there's huge like Anil and Shweta talked about mental wellness. Now, a lot of the mental wellness issues start from the fact that our mind thinks non-stop about past, future, past, future. So we are hardly there in the present. Like right now, I'm talking, you're listening, but there are other thoughts also going on in the mind. When will she stop? We have to finish the panel, whatever. And the problem is that happens everywhere. Even when you're talking to your child, listening to your child, talking to your partner, it's happening all the time. We are never 100%. So there's real need for people to have environments or groups where we learn to be in the present, learn to enjoy the present, and that will solve a lot of our mental wellness issues as well.
No, beautifully said, and I completely agree. And I was getting signs a little while ago, and he's still doing that. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so interesting. Lot of takeaways for us. I think the question about ROI, while it did not get concretely answered, but there's a lot of intangibles that are associated, which I think if you put value to it, you'll do it a disservice. Think about everybody when you're planning your policies and your benefits is a huge takeaway. You don't have to jump right in. You can start slow, you can start small, look at the basics first and listen to your employees and really grow or build on your policies, really what has been a big takeaway amongst a lot of other things. Thank you so much for this panel. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to all of you here and before. So yeah, great going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that.